Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. My name is Stevie Collier, and I'm here with my co-host, Andy Peliquin, and today we are with the awesome J.M. Butler, who is the author of the... Great, now it just slipped my head. I'm sorry, J.M. Jessica, what are you the author?
The author of the Turok Chronicles. That's okay.
Turok
It's a bit of an odd name.
Yes, and I am in Phoenix, Arizona, so I am using my phone, so I don't have any of my notes in front of me. I've actually been waiting in Phoenix for 2 hours so I could do this podcast. But it's all right because I'm actually missing all the horrible traffic. The traffic here starts at 3 o'clock. I realize that, and it's just terrible.
Sounds like LA.
Yeah, it really. I really thought I was in LA for a very long time. It was like worse than LA at some points. But yes, I'm in here at beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, and Jessica and I were talking about how beautiful it is, and when just saying Arizona is beautiful, it doesn't really make sense. But when you're here, it just really is nice. It's very beautiful. The heat is just crazy.
Yeah, it's easy to get dehydrated really fast out there.
Yeah. Did you have a story about the dehydration?
I did. I was trying to reach the post office before it closed with a friend, and we decided to run the half mile there from the conference that we were attending, and we just took off running, full business attire, and skirt suits, heels, and we were doing pretty great until about 2 blocks from the post office, and suddenly, oh my goodness, where did all of this come from? And so we dragged ourselves there, and there was not a working water fountain. So we had to come back to the Wendy's. And I will tell you, I have never been so grateful for an ice-cold Powerade in my life. And they could have asked me.
Is that what it was?
That's what I got.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Texas, because I had those days, too, where it was just... Texas is horrible in the summer, especially in the valley in Brownsville, the far south. It's like brutal. And so you walk into the 7-Eleven and it feels like you've stepped into a magical kingdom where there is air conditioning, Powerade, and it's brutal in Texas. That's what I was going to say. Like the heat of Arizona, I know is really bad, but is it worse than Texas?
To me it is, because it's like a dry heat, I guess.
It's really dry.
And man,
from the time that I spent in both Texas and Arizona, it was more of like in Texas, you were aware of that heat to a certain extent, whereas in Arizona, it was almost nice for a little bit. It was so dry. There wasn't no sensation of I'm drowning like in Florida. But then all of a sudden you're gasping, and it was just kind of disconcerting how quickly you could go from thinking you were fine to, oh my goodness, I will die of dehydration if I don't take steps very quickly.
Arizona to me is like stepping into an oven.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, is that wind better? Because I'm like covering it with my hand.
Yeah, that's much better. Today's episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast is brought to you by very, very strong Phoenix winds.
Yes, it's terrible. Like, usually when I drive, I put just like one hand on the wheel. But for 3.5 hours, I'd have both hands on the wheel, full concentration forward, because I went through 3 or 4 sandstorms, and a lot of people had pulled over to the side, but I had this podcast, so like, I'm getting there, so I almost died for this podcast, everyone.
I hope it's worth it.
It is. It's already worth it. Andy's insulted me 6 times already. It's good. It's all good.
I feel like I've been super kind today, and I haven't done any insults.
You've been super nice to me. But really, the wind is okay when I have my hand like this?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So today we're doing a very interesting topic, and it is very close to the one we had with Jessica. When I usually forget the topics because we have so many, but the last topic we had really resonated with me, and that was, do something that scares you. And I'm a huge believer in that. I think it makes us all better. And today we're doing do something you're bad at.
Yes.
So... How did you come up with this topic?
Well, it partially came because, how they say we all have our critical flaw, things that we need to be aware of that can really upend us. And mine is pride. I'm a perfectionist, I want to be perfect so badly, and I'm really, really bad at it. But I can still get an ego about how well I'm doing at certain things. And I noticed that I was avoiding certain tasks because I wasn't particularly good at them. And but they're so good, actually. Like, I'm a terrible artist. But if I kept, doing it because I just enjoyed it, even though I was bad at it, I could still learn. And not to mention, there's things where if you keep doing them, it reminds you that you're not perfect. So quit putting out that ridiculous standard. And sometimes you get pretty great stories and you make an absolute mockery of yourself. And it reminds you that we're all human.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I actually take a similar approach with my fantasy writing. I don't think my fantasy writing's bad, but whenever I think that's a huge reason why a lot of people get writer's block is because they try and be perfect with their writing and like, oh, people are going to hate this, and then their minds just quit. And really, the Four Territories was a bigger success than I thought it was going to be. And I wrote that book with what I thought was going to be cool. And I didn't worry about what other people were going to say about it. And I just wrote from the heart. And I think that's where the success came from. So, yeah, it may be bad to some people, but I'm not trying to impress everybody in the world with it. And this is something I actually fight every day. I'm like, oh, well, but will people like this? I'm like, well, screw the other people. Do I like it? You know? I know it doesn't go fully with today's topic, but now I'm trying to figure out what I do that I'm bad at. Because I'm amazing at everything.
Oh, well, so that's good. One of the things that I do regularly that I'm still really bad at, I used to be good at it, but I became pretty bad at it, is knife throwing. And I
didn't expect that.
Yeah, it's
knife throwing. It's knife throwing. That's what you're bad at.
Yeah, I'm bad at knife throwing. In fact, if you want to know the safest place to be when I'm throwing knives, is to stand right at the target, because I'm going to miss the target by about that much. I am actually about that much or bigger. And I used to be really good at it, but then I ended up cutting my eye, not with the knives. I
was going to say.
It was much less exciting. It was much less exciting than that. It was actually, I was wearing contacts and a bit of concrete got underneath. And when I tried to remove it, and I removed it improperly, which was
is there a proper way to remove concrete from your eye?
Well, you don't drag it through the contact multiple times. You're supposed to put eye solution in and do it delicately, but you know how when something's hurting your eye and you just start apparently that's the wrong thing to do. See, that was a day I did something I was bad at, and I sort of regret that.
Getting concrete out of your eye.
Yeah, just a little speck. It's amazing how much it takes, but yeah, so I've just never really been good at it since then, but I enjoy it, and it keeps me humble and reminds me that if I'm ever in a fight, I will never, ever use knife throwing as a way to defend myself. It's impractical anyway, but, just in case ego suggested this would be the appropriate method. Like, no, not unless you want to hit that poor innocent bystander.
Do you have those, are you guys hearing double me?
Yes.
Okay. It's not on me, right? It can't be. Anyway, I was just wondering. Now I can't hear it. Do you have those knives that are semi-dull? They look dull at the Renaissance fairs, the ones that they throw.
I don't know. Hey, James, sweetie. Hold on. I'm going to ask my husband to grab the knives. I don't think they're that dull.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
James, sweetheart, can you grab the throwing knives?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we keep them in there. I think they're sharp enough that. Thank you, honey. They're sharp enough. They can. Yeah, they've got a good blade on them. See? I mean.
Those are kunai.
Yeah, I have a set of 7-inch that are downstairs in the knitting basket, but.
Yeah, those don't look dull at all.
Yeah, if I could move the camera, I'd show you. I just have this bulletin board that I set up. And I put cardboard all over it, and that's what I use for my target. And I have a little net that catches them. So,
you do it in the house?
Well, yeah, I'm in town. People don't particularly care for you throwing knives out in town.
I was thinking, in Texas, I used to throw knives in my backyard.
I'll take them out to my parents' house sometimes. Challenge there is they tend to disappear because we're out in the woods, deep in the woods. So like I had these one set of throwing knives. They're about like that big, black blades. Loved them so much.
Oh, they curved a little bit?
Actually, no, this set didn't curve, but it curved when I threw it.
Yeah.
And it went into the woods, and I've never found it. So there is an excellent throwing knife out there someplace.
I'm going to hunt for it.
Yeah.
And Andy, have you ever thrown knives before?
I have, and I'm pretty rubbish at it.
Really?
Yeah. I don't have the greatest hand-eye coordination when it comes to throwing things. I'm gonna I can catch anything, but throwing specifically, I don't I don't release at the right time, and because my brain needs to sort of understand things, I haven't figured out how to do it properly. So it's something I'm pretty bad at, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's fun though, isn't it?
I love it. When I was just thinking, like, when I get my own office, I work in the same space with my wife, and so I was like, oh, when I get my own office, I am totally setting up like a dartboard with cardboard to throw knives at it.
I'll send you guys a picture of it after the show's over.
Yeah, you should. I want to see this.
But yeah, it's better than throwing it at your walls. And but when I go out to my parents' house, because like I said, they live out in the country, I have wooden targets. And then we also have the archery mount that we can just take out and throw at it. But I have never hit the bullseye since this, so very humbling.
Really?
Yeah.
I would throw stars because it's like instant hit, right?
Yeah.
For me, I was able to get those to stick.
Well, it's like about half the time when I throw knives, I don't even get the blade in, quite frankly. And so that's what I started working on was, okay, can I just get to the point where it goes in blade first? Because, when you're throwing something like this, I mean, sometimes it hits it like that. Sometimes it hits like that. I remember the funniest time was I went out and I was angry at one point. And I was throwing the knives, and it was on the mount, not on the wooden stump. And I threw it, and it went in hilt first. Like, well, I think I was a little angry when I threw that knife.
It went hilt first?
It went in hilt first.
And stuck.
It stuck.
That's great.
That was a really bad day.
I just realized something I do every day that I'm bad at, and I'm not afraid to admit that my Japanese is something that I do every single day, and I am horrendous. I am horrendous at speaking Japanese. But something I really like about doing something bad every day I'm a little bit less worse. Less worse, less bad, however you say it. But every day I get a little bit better. I learn a new kanji. What was it? We were talking to Andy, and it was minasan?
Minasan, yeah, not minasama.
Okay, and what was the reason behind that? Minasama is like disrespectful for some reason?
No, minasama is like super respectful. It's like esteemed people, dignitaries, the president, the royal family, like someone who is like that. Sama is super highly respectful. And
but I thought
is just like everybody.
Won't like a pilot say minasama to his people?
Maybe. I would think minasan.
Minasan,
just because it's people in general.
Yeah, for all of you who don't know, Andy was born and raised in Japan, Nihon.
Ah.
Yes, he was. He was the Godzilla of Japan. I went too far. I'm sorry, Andy.
That's all right. I'm okay with that comparison. I've been looking over the people's heads since I was like 12 years old. So,
but in Japan though, it must be way worse because isn't it like a thing where they are shorter than Americans?
Oh yeah, definitely. But that's what I mean. Since I was 12 years old, I actually had this line across my forehead right here from banging the low doorways.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Turns out I was pretty bad at walking through doors in Japan. So
hey, something else. I mean, with learning languages, it really does help to accept that we're not going to be good. Like I've been, when I was learning Spanish, I really struggled with that. And I've been learning Miami as well, and accepting that I'm going to really, really suck at it, and making some of the sounds is very challenging sometimes. But
what language was that?
Miami.
Niamia.
Is
that a fantasy one, or is that a real one?
No, it's real. It's often referred to as the Miami Indians, but it's Miami. They lived through Indiana and Ohio. It's part of my family. And
yeah, totally.
so I decided I wanted to learn Miamia because, there aren't that many people in the tribe to begin with, and it's almost a dead language, pretty much. And so I just thought, this could be an interesting thing to do. I mean, I haven't had a lot of interaction with other members, but I'd like to learn that. So I've been working through like these very old books, and actually found on Memrise they have
What?
yes, on Memrise they have a
Freaking cool.
course. Yeah, it's excellent. And
That is so awesome. Memrise is great. I love Memrise.
isn't it phenomenal?
Yes.
I've used it with French, Spanish, and now Miamia. And my brother is using it for Russian, and he really likes it.
Yeah, so I speak French, and people always ask me if I speak it fluently, and no, I've seen people who speak it fluently, and they're the people who can watch movies and TV.
Yeah.
No, I still can't watch movies and TV in French, but I could live in France easily.
That's good.
Yes.
I lost most of mine, unfortunately.
It sucks. Yeah, you definitely have to practice it. I don't practice French anymore. I fell in love with Japanese, and any chance I get, I'm speaking. And quick thing about language learning that I disagree with, and it goes with our do something you're bad at. And I just read this article, and it was, do not speak your new language because you're too bad at it. And if you speak, you'll get these habits. And I disagree. I think you should be speaking your target language as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Even they said wait 2 years before you start speaking your language. Yeah, just focus all on input and don't output. And I disagree. I made bad habits when I was speaking French, but I was able to correct them later on. But at least I spoke the freaking language. But anyway, Andy, I want to know what you're bad at. I want to know something you do every day that you're bad at.
I'm bad at so many things. I'd say that the thing that I'm probably worst at is actually the marketing side of being an author. I have such a hard time with it because it's something that's so unfamiliar to me. So when I try to do something new every day, or learn something new. Watch a new webinar video, or listen to a new podcast or something. But I feel like I have so far to go to be any good at marketing. And so, I feel a little bit more confident in my writing, so I can, I can sort of do that without worrying too much about it. So then the stuff that's really my focus now is the marketing side of things.
With the marketing, I found that the best thing you can do is just release a new book, because it's so competitive, and everyone's doing all these different marketing techniques that, unlike us three, I'm sure, but a lot of people stop writing just to do marketing, and I think it's more important just to get those books out there, expand your bookshelf. But Andy, I agree. I feel like I'm also bad at marketing, but learning stuff every day.
Yeah,
that was a good one. That was a really good one. I like that one. You were ready.
Bad at marketing too. I am terrible. Currently, getting better. But I'm glad that the best marketing is releasing a new book, because that's getting easier for me to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there is so much to learn when it comes to marketing. Yesterday I was listening to someone talk about Amazon advertising. Today I was at a webinar about great blurbs. Every day there's something new, and so many different things that it's you can really spend a lifetime learning it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's where I feel like I'm the most bad at something, and so I try to do it every day. But the thing that I love about this thing of doing something bad every day, or something you're bad at every day, is that eventually you get better at these things.
Yep.
No one's amazing, or everyone is amazing at a couple of things instinctively. But then to get good at anything, it's called you got to put in the time. And so by actually putting in the time at something, whether it's 5 minutes a day or an hour a day, you do it little by little, you get better at it. And then eventually, after a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's when you realize, holy shit, I'm actually really good at 20 different things because I did them a little bit every day. Sort of like as a writer, when you start off writing, or when I started off writing, I knew, okay, I can string a sentence together fine, but I'm not so good at the emotions. So then I focused on that. And then I got better. And then, okay, I need to start getting the characters. And so I focused on that and got better. And then so with each thing that you go building on, you get better and better and better, to the point where now I can sit down and write a book, and I can be fairly confident that the story that I told actually came through the way I wanted to. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have been, freaking out because, oh my God, did I do it justice? All of that.
Right.
So, by building on a little bit every day, practice makes permanent. And I
Oh, I
love
like
that thing
that.
of trying something new every day, because I feel like if we all did that, we would be better at so many different things instead of just being an expert at one thing. You could learn to paint, you could draw, you could.
I really like that quote.
Yeah.
I have another quote from a famous golfer. Y'all might know his name. I forgot it, but he says somebody. So he made a hole in one, and one of the people who were watching him play golf was like, "Oh, that was so lucky." And he turned to me and said, "Yeah, the harder I practice, the luckier I get."
Oh,
And
that
I
is a good
love
one.
that. Yeah, the harder I practice, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And to me, that's the more books I put out, the luckier I'll be.
Yes.
I just published my third novel and instantly saw a rise in the first one, and that was with little promotion. And I mean, I'm not rich or anything, and I'm not making tons of money, but it doubled what I was making.
Yeah.
And that was just releasing another book. And we can all take a note from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that is you can't get something for nothing. And what I'm trying to say is, not only do you want to put out quantity, you want to put out quality.
Yes.
So it's quality too, not just. Have you guys been hearing about these people who are publishing books that are actually double spacing their work just for page count?
Yes.
It's
Unfortunately.
sickening. It's taking that is a sellout. Yeah,
Yeah.
people say marketing's a sellout. No, it's doing stupid stuff like that. That's ridiculous. Karma will come back to get you, or you'll lose your Amazon account.
Yeah, Amazon is not fond of that. And it kind of goes along with this. I just looked it up to make sure I got it right. But we often say jack of all trades, master of none, and we cut it off there. But the actual full quote is jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one.
Really? So I've always heard that being a master of one thing, specific knowledge, is better than being a jack of all trades.
It's been misquoted for years. I was actually just it was earlier this week, and it was one of these articles. It was about history of common sayings and things that we just haven't, we've lost the meaning to, and that over time phrases and sayings get clipped and cut down, and there comes a point where it's cut down so much that people then take a completely different meaning. So yeah, the original one was jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one.
That is, wow, yeah. But with being a jack of all trades, are we like, with these trades, are we like trying to get them better each day, or are we just like staying at a small level?
I think it depends on who you are. Because in a sense, as indie writers, we have to master so many different things. I mean, it's not enough to just be a good writer. In a sense, like you said, we're all working on our marketing. We have to be good marketers. We also have to be good lead salespeople. And to a certain extent, we have to learn social media and websites, depending on which course we take with it. We have to learn how to interact with people. There's
Ew, people.
I know. It's so much harder well, even as an attorney, I run my own law firm with my husband. And
That's cool.
yeah, it's not just practicing law. In fact, very little of what we do actually takes place in the courtroom. There are so many other skills that we've had to learn that in a much larger corporate setting, if we had done that, there would be someone who is an expert in that, but we don't have that option. We just have to learn how to do all of it. So it's
I feel like being a lawyer is a jack of all trades in itself, because you have to know so many things.
yes,
So I took a business law class, and it was by far one of my favorite classes ever. But I just felt like my brain was spread out over all these things. Like, I thought we were done until we got to quasi law, and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Is it called quasi, or am I mispronouncing that?
I've heard it pronounced that way. I'm assuming it's correct, but I'm not going to fault anyone on poor pronunciation. You should hear some of the terrible words I pronounce. When I was younger, I insisted that measure should be measure. It needed to be measure. It's not measure. What is measure?
Measure. What is that? It sounds like Russian. Measure.
Yeah, measure.
Or Arabic. Measure. So, Andy, I don't have a time here. Oh, yes, I do. 5:52. Okay, we got time to still discuss the topic. And I think we all got challenged to do something we were scared of last time, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was um, getting a shot, I believe was one of mine, because I'm terrified of getting shots. And lo and behold, guess what Stevie has to do for his
Oh.
checkup? He has to get blood drawn. And I'm really proud of myself because as soon as the doctor said, hey, you probably need to get your blood drawn, I was just instantly, I was like, let's do it. And I was terrified, right? And I got it done. And you know what? The nurse actually got me talking about what I did for a living, which was, I was writing. And I didn't even notice that they were doing it and it was
Oh, that's
done.
good.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was a good experience. And it helped too that the nurse was pretty. So
Oh, that does
yeah,
help.
it does help. But yeah, I did mine. Andy, I don't know if you remember what yours was.
I don't remember.
You probably did it anyway.
Maybe. You know, I'm,
But
I'm the kind of person who I'm pretty aware of what my fears are to a certain extent. There's all those subconscious and unconscious fears that we all have, but when I recognize that, okay, I'm afraid of something or I'm hesitant to do something, I'll usually go and do it, just so I'm not one of those people who are afraid of things like needles or snakes or spiders in the
yeah,
dark or anything like that. Just because I feel like not that that's a weakness, but it's like if something can stop you from doing something, then you could end up not doing something because of that fear. So I'm like, all right, let's face the fear, and then it loses its power. That's my approach to things. Obviously, there are many things that I'm probably subconsciously afraid of, inherent from past traumas or whatever it is. But at least things that I recognize, okay, this is something I'm hesitant to do, or I'm actually afraid of it, then I'll go and do it.
you know what I've recently found that. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Oh, no, no,
Jessica.
you go ahead. It's fine.
Oh, I was just gonna say a recent thing that I found out that I'm actually kind of scared to do, and that is talk to women. You
Oh.
know, but yeah, but actually like talk to them, to go have dinner and stuff, and it's pretty scary. Like I've been out of the game for 6 years, and to actually like go do this stuff. Um, I'm actually over it now because I've been doing it a lot. But I feel bad for a lot of because I'm an extrovert, so like I'm lucky, but it's still terrifying. So I feel bad for other people who can't work up the nerve, even though they're just great people. And that girl's probably
Mhm.
sitting there across the coffee shop just waiting for them, and they're too afraid to go talk to them. So that was something I had to work through that I was not prepared for because I thought I could talk to anybody. But once you have that idea in your head, like, oh, I'm about to go ask them for dinner, you think you're gonna die. You think they're
Oh,
gonna pull out a knife and stab you in the heart. But no, I'm still alive.
I have
So
always
that's a new fear.
I've always felt bad for guys who've had to do that. When I was in college, we had Mission Impossible week where
Oh yeah.
we would draw missions, and mine was 2 years in a row I had to propose to a guy, and
Whoa.
yeah, with a ring pop, so hopefully he wouldn't think it was serious. But of course, I proposed to this one guy, and he's like, "We're getting married now. We're getting married."
Oh, he took it. Oh yeah, he
No,
wanted it.
he was messing with
Oh,
me. But
okay.
just having the nerve to go up and ask a guy to marry you and not give a bunch of explanations, it was terrifying.
You were
That
still scared, even with the ring pop.
even with the ring pop, well, more because it required. I tend to be much more of an introvert, and particularly at that point, I'd gone through a really bad situation
Mm-hmm.
with basically a breakup, I guess you could call it. But and so it's like I don't want to do this, but I also didn't want my team to lose, and so I just got through it, and yeah, I got it 2 years in a row. Second year it was easier, but it was still. It's like
Yeah.
I have a lot of sympathy for guys having to get up the strength to go and talk to girls and risk rejection.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Um, I'm trying to think of what else I do bad at. Um, I also didn't realize how hard it was to give people compliments
Mm.
without being a weirdo. And
Yeah.
You mean random
and
people on the street?
I always every day I try at least do one thing, and I don't always do it because I don't work up the courage to do it. Because sometimes I don't have to talk to somebody, so I actually have to go up and start a conversation. And big ones I do are if somebody's wearing like a veteran hat, I say, "Oh, thank you for your service," and after I do it, I just feel so great, and that's something I'm bad at, but I want to get better at. And another thing I want to start doing better at is tithing.
Mhm.
Giving away a portion of my sales, and I'm bad at that. I don't want to do it. Spiritually, I want to, but I don't want to. Something else I want to start working on. And so, Jessica, by the next time we have you, hopefully I'll have tithed more.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
yes, I think tithing is something I'm bad at, but I'm slowly working up towards becoming better. I'm definitely more aware of it than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, with tithing, one of the things I've found that really helps is to do it first. As soon as you get the check, that makes it a lot easier.
That is a really good idea. Like paying yourself first before you pay off your bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just makes a big difference. You get it taken care of right away. Then you're not dealing with but I have so little left.
And he's like, "What are y'all talking about? What is this giving away money?"
No, I remember where I was raised. Tithing was such a normal part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah, as far as like humorous things I'm bad at, sometimes I'm really bad at walking a straight line. Like I really pray I never get pulled over.
Just totally sober.
Yeah, totally
you can't
sober.
Walk the line.
Because usually I'm doing other things, and I have, as my husband can actually attest, I can't walk a straight line while I'm multitasking, and I'm almost always multitasking while I'm walking. And there was one time I was on a balance beam, and I decided let's just work on balance, and I'm going to read while I'm doing this.
That's a great idea.
It was a wonderful idea. I was in junior high at the time, so all of those mental pistons are firing right there. Flipped myself over, still don't know how I did it. Just landed right on that balance beam. Got a very impressive bruise that, if you looked at it and squinted, kind of looked like Asia. But
hey, where was this bruise? On your back?
Right up my side. Like,
okay.
Because I kind of fell down like that crossways. It was pretty impressive.
So next period at in geometry class, you were ready.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Well, is there anything else we want to talk about anymore? So I really want to focus real quick on what is the importance of doing something you're bad at in your daily life. I want to cover that at least one more time.
Sure.
And I think I covered that. I think it's because you get a little bit better at it every day. And that was my big thing. And that's something I hope the listeners and viewers take away. And if you're a fantasy writer, which I think a lot of people who watch this are, you're not alone if you think your writing is bad. Yep. Even the confident, amazing, super handsome, super cute Stevie Collier, amazing God thinks his writing sucks sometimes. So take it from me, it's rough, and especially because you also have to show the world your work afterwards. And I think being a fantasy author is very brave and something you get better at every day. And luckily I have people like you, Jessica, people like you, Andy, I could just simply email and say, hey, how do I get better at this? And I know you guys would help me. So I'm lucky. So is there anything else we could talk about the significance of doing something bad every day?
It does open up new learning opportunities. I mean, if you walk into it, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to suck at it, but you do it anyway. It just helps so much. Keeps you humble. But when I started learning how to do lock picking, I was terrible at it. That was fun.
Lock picking? What are you? Are you a secret ninja or something? What's going on?
I'm a fantasy author.
Seriously, it's so cool.
They need to know how to do this thing. You got to be careful what state you're in. And also, to be serious, if anyone decides to take up, say, lockpicking or something like that, check your state's laws, because in some states, you can be arrested for having them on your person without a valid reason. And I don't actually know that. I'm writing about a rogue who needs to get through this corrupted palace. I don't know that counts as a valid reason.
It reminds me of Elder Scrolls. I don't know if y'all have played that, but the lockpicking is super fun in those games.
Much. I love the game, but the lockpicking in it aggravates me so much.
Is it because it's hard?
Well, no, it's not like real lockpicking.
It's not? I always thought it was because it looks so realistic.
There's some similarities, but part of it depends on the lock that you're dealing with, and you've got to, there's a lot more finagling. And how they always show in movies, you pull out a hairpin, and they just take one hairpin. those things, well, first of all, when they used to be, they had to be like really strong. You need very strong metal or else it's not going to go in. And then you need your little lever, unless you're talking maybe like a single pop lock, which isn't the proper terminology. But yeah, so that just kind of aggravated me a little bit, because I'm like, Elder Scrolls, yes, lock picking. This isn't how it works.
Yeah, that's cool though.
It's going through. But yeah, but it really helped. And so learning that was actually a lot of fun and really helped for some of my stories, even though it wound up being a smaller detail. You know, it's not as useful as a skill as you might think, because
I don't know if it'd ever be useful for me unless it's like opening up a car door, because I always seem to leave my keys in my car.
And see, that's a different locking mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can get kits that'll teach you how to pick those locks, but they might not be legal.
Kids. I'm picturing like you're trying to like get into your like great grandmother's home, and she has like that knob door.
Yes.
And you're like, because you're about to steal Granny's rubies.
There you go.
Hey, don't steal that idea. That's my idea.
You may have that idea.
Thank you.
But those are some of the easier ones to pick, because you can see through that lock, for one thing.
Yeah. You can like actually look in like classic movies, are like looking at people undressing and stuff.
Yeah. You know, things have changed a lot. Nowadays, yeah, it doesn't work that way. But yeah, there's just so much more freedom if you go into it and understand, I'm going to fail at this and I'm okay. And in a way, it's just a success because you tried it. And then it lets you make your story so much richer, you know, because you have then that personal experience that you can draw on. And
my parents and I were just discussing that how much experience helps you become a better author.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, just the humility too, because it's sometimes really good to just be reminded that we aren't capable of perfection. And it's like when I miss walking through the door and hit half of my head in the side of the door frame.
Half of your head?
Yeah, just kind of, like just split it right there. I mean, Andy's got the mark across here, and if I'm not paying attention, I've got it right across here.
All right.
You kind of get taken down a few notches. Like, do you do amazing things? Maybe, but I can't walk through doors very well. Can't walk a balance beam, and yeah.
It's like, I think that slave that rode on the chariots behind Caesar's, saying, you remember that you're just a man. We all need those things in our lives to remind us of that.
Yep, and slavery is illegal, so we can't do that option.
So I think we covered this topic pretty well. Andy, do you want to go ahead with the reading?
Yeah, for sure. But first, this episode is brought to you by Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. Clay Cooper and his band were once the best of the best, the most feared and renowned crew of mercenaries this side of the Heartwild. Their glory days long past, the mercs have grown apart and grown old, fat, drunk, or a combination of the three. Then an ex-bandmate turns up at Clay's door with a plea for help, the kind of mission that only the very brave or the very stupid would sign up for. It's time to get the band back together. Try this rollicking, page-turning, edge-of-your-seat road trip of a book today for free right now on Amazon Kindle Unlimited. And find out more about this outstanding debut novel of author Nicholas Eames at nicholaseames.com. That's E-A-M-E-S, nicholaseames.com.
Great commercial, great book. Everybody if they watch the show regularly, they know I love it.
We've mentioned it in at least 25% of our episodes.
Yeah, it's just great character creation. So are we ready to start on the reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Quick note, in Texas, it is now legal to carry a broadsword.
Hey!
Yeah. Gonna be doing that pretty soon.
Yeah, that gives concealed carry a brand new meaning.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so is there any characters y'all want to play?
Well, Jess, why don't you give us some directions? You're the director of this movie.
All right, so you guys did a fantastic job on the voices the last time. I really enjoyed that. So I think we'll do that again this time. This is the third book in the series. And right now, just as a little bit of world building setup to make sure that we're on the same page, the three characters in it are Rawath, Kekoa, and Amelia. So that's what that weird Q name is, but there's a story behind that, but we won't go through that. Anyway, they're trapped on Asika, and right now they are especially stuck in what is known as the wax-leafed forest. Now, this is a forest that's really particularly dangerous, even for shapeshifters, because the leaves and the branches grow back pretty much as soon as they're cut, unless they are dealt with in a particular way. So it's almost like a living sea of foliage. And the only way through this forest is by these predators who eat out paths, so to speak. They're called besreds. And these are enormous omnivores. They look kind of like gorgonopsids, but they eat essentially everything by just clamping their jaws down and shooting out this powerful corrosive acid that lets them just absorb it directly through their mouths. And so you really need to be careful. There's a lot of very dangerous flora and fauna here. Everything's huge, and it's omnivores are your best bet. Most things are just predators and carnivores. So
gotcha, sweet. So
yeah. So see, they're stuck here. So let's see, Andy. I think last time you did Rawath. You know,
what kind of voice is he?
He is. He's usually fairly calm. He is pretty cunning. He is usually not panicked. He can find humor in just about everything, but he doesn't do a lot of lowbrow humor. Okay. Stevie, do you want to do Keikoa?
Yeah, Keikoa, and that's a female?
No, Keikoa's male. Amelia's the female, which you did her before, and if you want to do her again, that'd be great too.
Amelia and Keikoa, and okay, is Amelia just like a normal girl voice?
She's a woman, so she can be fairly aggressive for her size, and right now she's been badly wounded. Okay. They were in a fight with gigantic mantises, and her heel has been cut open.
Sounds so fantasy.
Yeah, I know. It's like, there's nothing like gigantic insects to bring home the message of you're not on your own world. Thankfully. Yeah. So glad.
And Keikoa is just sort of, and how would his voice be?
He's big. He is also a shapeshifter, but he's very strong. He is sincere. He's not inclined to what's the word that I want? He and Rawath are best friends, and Rawath is usually the instigator of the trouble. Keikoa is the best friend who pulls him out.
All right. And do you want to be the narrator?
I can do that.
All right. Well, I'm good to go when y'all are.
All right.
Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Is the wind okay?
Yeah.
All right. Good to go.
All right. Spatters of water struck Amelia's face. She held out her hand. The water didn't fall like rain, but the thick mesh of leaves above likely prevented the typical pattern.
Rain.
Amelia murmured gratefully. She drank from the cup-like leaves. Keikoa crouched, resting his hand against the tree. Rawath stood, his head brushed the top of the leafy passage. Without speaking, he pressed Amelia back. As his hand brushed over her bare arm, Amelia cringed, a spasm of fear spreading through her. Rawath's fear, not her own.
What's wrong?
Amelia whispered. The rain increased, forming thick gray sheets that poured down the branches. Amelia shivered, her clothing now soaked. Tension hung thicker now. She could risk reading Rawath's mind, but the emotional overload might be too much. Instead, she followed the line of his sight. A deep, guttural grunt sounded a short distance away. Another followed. Then came a sound like large mouths closing and branches snapping. Amelia's chest tightened. Besreds. The sound drew closer. Rawath put his hand on Amelia's shoulder.
Move quietly. Stay behind me, but in front of Keikoa.
Amelia tried to stand, but her leg was so stiff she had to bite back a sharp cry. Despite the deep cut in her heel, her whole leg throbbed. Millions of pins and needles seemed to be piercing her leg, but all of the pain had skipped her wounded heel entirely, stinging only the ball of her foot and her leg. She rubbed her calf briskly, hoping to get the blood moving faster. A flicker of concern passed over Rawath's face.
If we have to run and you can't, we'll carry you.
Amelia nodded, shook her bad leg once more, and followed Rawath out of the bower. The rain poured faster now. It wasn't impossible to walk at least, but the mud clinging to her feet made the stiffness and pain harder to manage. Amelia gritted her teeth. Her foot caught on an upturned root, and she staggered, steadying herself on Rawath's shoulder. More thoughts and emotions swept through her. Rawath's unease was as loud as his thoughts, which now fell into her mind.
How many best reds are there?
He wondered.
Cursed rain. 2 at least. Probably more. Maybe 5. Stragglers from the pack. Can she run fast enough?
Amelia shook her head, startled, and pulled her hand away. Of course her mind-reading worked now. Keikoa walked backwards, his gaze fixed on the point where the best reds were coming.
Can't you fly away?
Amelia whispered.
What form do you suggest?
Roath asked.
We certainly wouldn't leave you behind, even if your foot was fine. And this place is too small to allow shifting into anything large enough to make much difference.
Fair enough. The tingling throughout her calf and thigh worsened. More leaves and branches cracked.
Can we at least get off this trail?
Amelia pressed her hand against the wall of leaves and branches. It didn't give.
It'll slow us too much and we'll be trapped.
Roath said. Another spasm of pain cut into Amelia's hip.
What about the trees? Can we climb? No chance.
Keikoa shook his head.
So we fight.
Amelia wasn't sure how well that would go either.
Is that better than running?
Another growl sounded. More leaves and branches snapped. A large gray maw appeared.
Be ready.
Roath tugged Amelia farther back.
It's still possible they'll pass us.
Keikoa said.
We aren't directly in their path.
The lead best red emerged. It was enormous and most closely resembled a gorgonopsid. Roath didn't even come up to its shoulder. The creature lifted its massive head and sniffed, the flesh around its nostrils pulling with each whooshing breath. It grunted again.
We'll try volcanic fury,
Roath said.
So as long as there's less than 5, it'll work.
If anything goes wrong, then don't wait for us,
Keikoa said. He and Roath shifted into dragon forms, their wings tucked tight. Even though they were far smaller than usual for dragons, they were almost too large for these rounded forest passages. Keikoa's chest glowed, intensifying the red in his rust and iron-colored scales. He and Roath backed farther away. The best red shook its massive head, barely clearing the passage. When a piece of foliage came too close to its head, the best red bit into it, dissolving the wooden leaves with its acidic jaws. As it stepped to the side, another best red followed. The streams of rain rolled off their backs, catching on irregular tufts of fur and dense hide. Another growl sounded deeper within. Amelia held her breath. The lead best red gave a grumphing call. It blinked, its opaque eyes disappearing behind thick gray lids. The other best red examined the bower, where Roath, Keikoa, and Amelia had rested. Both creatures turned toward them. Amelia's muscles tightened. The best red smelled the air. Together they snarled, their lips curling as a third best red appeared in the opening. The lead best red drew closer. Roath and Keikoa exchanged a glance, then roared. Keikoa spewed out a massive stream of lava. The magma splattered on the ground and caught the nearest best red's forelegs. The creature lunged backwards, howling, snagging in the branches and leaves as it knocked over the second best red. The third leaped aside and crashed into the wall of foliage. It fought its way through, broadening and tearing it even as the leaves and branches healed themselves. The best red's barks of rage and distress were followed by more from within the original passage. A fourth and fifth best red fought their way out. The new arrivals had scarcely thrust their heads out when Roath spat out a thick stream of clear liquid. As soon as the liquid struck the magma, it exploded into a wall of crackling fire, burning despite the rain.
Run, Amelia!
Roath shouted. Amelia plunged into the darkness of the trail. Roath and Keikoa shifted back to their states of rest and ran alongside her.
You have to go faster!
Roath ripped her forward. Amelia clenched her teeth together and pumped her legs faster, urging her body forward even as fiery pain tore through. They turned one of the bends, leaving the nightmarish glow of the lava and firewall. The best reds behind them snarled and howled. Then the ground shook.
Definitely more than 5 back there,
Keikoa shouted.
It sounds like a pack,
Amelia exclaimed. They rounded another bend in the forest labyrinth. What were they going to do? If best reds tracked based on scent and vibrations and could eat through almost everything, there was nothing to do but try to outrun them, and that seemed impossible.
Look for Sephna holes,
Roath commanded. The howls intensified. Mud and water sloshed around their feet as they ran. Her own leg ached and throbbed far beyond what she thought was possible, but each time Amelia slowed, Roath or Keikoa shoved or jerked her forward. They took a hairpin turn. The best reds galloped behind them, shoving and thrusting against one another. Amelia glimpsed them as they rounded yet another corner. The best reds were gaining.
There!
Keikoa pointed ahead. A boulder off the left shoulder of the path had been cracked open. Red and gray lichen stained the surface. The dank hole beneath was surrounded in blackened and wilted leaves.
Follow Keikoa!
Roath pushed Amelia in front of him. Keikoa jumped in the pit, feet first, his arms crossed. Amelia halted.
What if there's something down there?
The only things worse than what was above the ground in Asikam was what was under.
If?
Roath grinned as he grabbed a handful of branches.
Let's pray there is.
He shoved her. Amelia shrieked as she plunged into the darkness. She landed on Keikoa.
Easy now.
Keikoa pulled her farther in, his boots crunching against the floor. Roath leaped in, clutching the branches to his chest. He landed with a heavy thump as a bestred smashed against the hole. The bestreds gathered around the hole, pawing and snarling. One jammed its massive jaws into the opening, bellowing. Amelia backed into the wall. Something cracked under her feet, leathery and yet brittle. It oozed over her foot. All the hairs on her neck and arms prickled. The elm-eyes on the backs of her knees ached.
There is something else in here,
she said. The ground thudded above as the bestreds dug and bit into the ground, widening the opening. The terrifying impression of another predator's presence strengthened. Amelia stretched her hand out.
Roath, Keikoa.
She steadied her voice.
There is something else in here.
Firelight flared. The hole was larger than Amelia had expected, the floor covered in leaves and melon-sized eggs, some cracked, some whole. Keikoa held a branch in front of his mouth as he blew flames onto it. A deep urge to drop struck Amelia. She obeyed the instinct, falling. Something dark sailed over her head. Roath grabbed it.
Excellent.
Roath held the massive serpent up by the back of the neck. The snake hissed. Its speckled black body started to coil around Roath.
You'll do perfectly.
Keikoa seized the snake by the tail as Roath angled himself beneath the opening. Then, as Keikoa released it, Roath flung the snake up as another bestred jammed its jaws in. The serpent bit the bestred on the snout. Pulling back, the bestred snarled. Another of the beasts clamped its jaws over the snake's body and dragged it out. Amelia got back on her feet, the bad feelings spreading. As Keikoa lit another torch, the passage brightened. The light caught the eyes of another half-dozen massive serpents less than 30 feet from her. Roath cracked his knuckles.
Well, looks like we found the whole colony.
He lunged forward, seized the nearest, and dragged it forward. Using his momentum, he shoved it up as another bestred pushed its head in. Keikoa grabbed up a serpent as well. Another bit his arm, coiling around his waist. Grunting, he slammed his body into the wall, cracking the serpent's spine.
Catch!
He hefted the dead one to Roath and bashed the other's head. Dirt trickled onto Amelia's head. Tilting her head back, she saw two golden eyes staring down at her from a ledge. The serpent struck. Amelia fell back, shooting her hands up with a sharp scream. She caught the serpent by the neck. As its weight bowed her arms, she dug her fingernails into its neck. It stretched its jaw out, revealing the inner cotton-white mouth and long protruding fangs. Venom dripped. As its body tried to coil around her, Amelia kicked at it with her good leg and fought to pin its muscular form to the wall with her foot.
Look who caught her first pit serpent.
Roath stood over her. He grinned as if this was something to be proud of, even as Amelia strained to keep it from gaining an advantage.
Let's just get that taken care of.
He hoisted it up to the bestreds. Amelia rolled over. Dirt, eggshells, and leaves clung to her arms and hair. Keikoa disappeared farther into the passage and returned with two more snakes, which he tossed through the opening. Roath followed suit. Another snake lashed out at Amelia from the ledge. This time, Keikoa snagged it from her and fed it to the bestreds. All the while, the bestreds clamored and bellowed around the ever-expanding entrance. Amelia seized more branches and made torches, staking them into the soft ground. Then all at once, Amelia realized that everything was silent except for the crackling of the makeshift torches. She straightened, keeping her weight off her bad foot.
Where did the bestreds go?
Roath grinned. Dirt and blood was smeared over his face and clothes.
There's only two ways to get away from a bestred, Deerheart. Escape or feed. We're fortunate there were enough serpents to go around.
And there's more good news.
Keikoa strode back, two dead serpents in hand.
We have dinner.
He lifted the snakes triumphantly.
Tomorrow we escape from the forest.
And that's it for
Very
this.
cool.
Thank you.
Know, I have to say, Jessica, you are a really good writer.
Oh, thank
excellent.
you.
Yes, you and Andy are excellent. As I was reading it, and this is what I did with Andy before I knew anything about self-publishing, I thought Andy was like his books would be in Barnes and Noble. No offense, Andy. I think your books are way better than 99% of what's at Barnes and Noble. But being ignorant, I thought if you were on Amazon.com, you were in Barnes and Noble. I had no idea. And Jessica, I just wanted to say your book gave me that same feeling.
Thank you.
And it was very professional, and it was a lot of what is that? It was a lot of showing and not telling, which I'm working on. And I don't know. I just thought it was excellent. Yeah, very well done with the descriptions and stuff, and I loved it.
Thank you. It was so hard to find the right section since this is book 3 and there's this huge spoiler in book 1 that I'm trying not to give away. I mean, to a certain extent, there's a little bit because, Rowath and Keiko are both the bad guys. And now we're kind of in a situation where clearly they have another thing that they're worried about. So it was a lot of fun to get to share this passage with you guys because it kind of is a little bit self-contained and it's not depressing and it's not too spoilery because, don't want to give that away just yet.
Well, great job. We read some of Andy's work last week, and I have to say, just listening to both of y'all's stuff, it's super inspiring. I really want to get my writing up to y'all's level. I always try and hang around with people who I feel are better than me, and I really, Andy, I loved your work last week, and it made me really want to read another Andy Peliquin novel.
Yeah, Andy is a very talented author. I got to do some beta reading for him with a couple of stories, and those were really good.
Right. Those were fun stories to write.
Yeah, you did a good job of handling dark issues, and I'm trying to think of the right way to say this because it's not like it was handled cheerfully, but it was handled like people, I guess is the best way to put it. Because sometimes
respectfully is what I was going for.
Respectfully too, yes, definitely. Because like some of the grimdark that I've read, for instance, tends to, it's like we're just going to make everybody the worst possible person possible. There's no good. We will make sure that if there's option A, B, and C, we'll choose D because it's worse and just rip your heart out for the fun of it. But the thing that I've enjoyed in your stories, Andy, is the way that you have purpose for whatever happens, which is huge. I mean,
very true.
Like, we're not gonna let's not just kill and rape things just for the fun of it. I really appreciate that there's purpose, but then there's also the human reaction, and you have kind of a spectrum of characters, so it's not all goodness gracious, how do you exist, people?
I've been seeing a lot of reviews, people saying it's so good to find an indie author who doesn't just write to fill pages, and I saw that it was on one of my books, but it opened my eyes that people are just probably putting in scenes that have nothing to do with the actual story, just to increase their page length. As indie authors, we make more if you're on KU.
Yeah.
And it scared me because it made me realize, like, oh, I need to watch out for that. Everything needs to be significant. And Andy, I totally agree with Jessica. Your scenes all have significance, which makes me feel like I need to plot a little bit more before I start writing.
That's actually one thing that, like, I'm going over what was Blade of the Destroyer, my first novel now, to prepare it for this relaunch. And I'm reading some of the scenes, and some of the scenes were there for a purpose, but they were put in the wrong way. They served a purpose, but they were constructed wrong, so they didn't serve the purpose the way that I wanted them to, or the way they should have. So it's sort of interesting to see how far you come as a writer. Going back to the first book.
I don't even like reading my first book.
It is quite an experience to read some of your first stories.
Do y'all ever cringe?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go on.
The first line for the portal, which became Identity Revealed, was a blatant ripoff of Tolkien's The Hobbit. Like,
oh wow.
I mean, I think it was something like there was a hole in the ground and there was a dragon or something like that. I mean, I got rid of The Hobbit. I mean, I didn't want The Hobbit. I wanted the dragon.
Yeah. And you're a lawyer. You should know better. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I was 5 when I wrote that, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this series started a long, long time ago for me. It was my first novel, and it was my first series. And technically, you're supposed to give those up. But I just, speaking of doing what we're bad at, I stuck with the series until it got good.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You can fix anything up with time and expertise, that you develop. That first story, like I'm actually doing that with the novel that I self-published in the days. I still love the characters. I love the story. I'm going to change it, and I'm
Yeah.
going to have it set. It's going to be, instead of set in Atlantis, it's going to be the lost continent of Aegeos, which is in my world. So it'll, like, the characters actually mention, this lost continent, and then I'll change it and I'll fix it up to fit in my world, and of course, update it with my much better writing than I had 4 years ago. But those old stories, you get better with practice, and then you can go back to them and say, okay, this was good about it, this needs to get better. And so you can, with expertise, you have fresh eyes, so to speak.
Well, I do need to get going, guys.
Yes.
And real quick, just when we get go off air, I need to ask both of y'all a quick question. So do you guys mind if I go ahead and end this podcast?
Go ahead.
And please, so thanks everybody for watching this week's episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I apologize if it was too windy for you. I am again in Phoenix, Arizona. But I love you guys, so I had to make sure I was here for this podcast. Plus, I really wanted to see Jessica again, and it was a pleasure reading your stuff again.
Thank you.
And so your books are titled or are written by J.M. Butler, right?
J.M. Butler, yes.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on Amazon. You can find those books there. You can also find me at my website, jmbutlerauthor.com. Now, it's under construction, so it's kind of ugly right now. And then you can also find me on Facebook under the name J.M. Butler.
And what was the chronicles of the series that we just read?
Two Rock Chronicles, and that is Book 3, Wilderness Untamed. It is coming out this summer, and this is Identity Revealed, and this is Enemy Known. So, and actually, I should swap hands so that it's in the proper order.
Love those book covers.
I love my cover artist. Her name is Steph Saw. She is superbly talented.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for being with us on air this week for the Fantasy Fiends podcast. No problem. Andy, it was great seeing you again as always. To our listeners and viewers, please hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us out tremendously. It has almost been a year since Andy and I have been doing this, and we are so blessed to have over 200 subscribers. Doing fantasy podcasts is very difficult to gain any traction on, and just having that amount, to me, I never would have saw that in a year, so just having that has been amazing, so thank you all for that, and there will be more gratitude to come, because we are not at a year quite yet, or are we, Andy? Not yet, right?
No, I think we're in May. We'll have been
in May, so we're so close, but we've come so far, and we've already won an award with this podcast. So just an early thank you to all of you great people out there. It's been fantastic talking fantasy with people like Jessica. And so with that, I say goodbye. You're all amazing, and I encourage you to try something that you're bad at. Do something you're bad at every day, and also do something that scares you every day. And Jessica, I hope we have another topic like this next time we come around, because I'm super into this kind of stuff.
I'll see what I
can do. Yes, please. So, all right, we'll see you next week for another fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. This is Stevie Collier with J.M. Butler and Andy Peliquin. Good night.